All right, hi. I'd like to basically just review my folder. I have various images of SpongeBob smoking weed. Just updated it, so I thought we would just go over my collection. Starting with the first one, Mondays. I think this is supposed to be an edited version of a magazine called Stoner Days. And it looks like they put a picture of SpongeBob. Blood, he's got bloodshot eyes, and he's smoking a weed through. He's smoking a weed blunt through the gap in his. He's got an iconic gap in his teeth. So, and they seem to have added a gold tooth here as well. But yeah, so I have a few MS Paint drawings of SpongeBob smoking a blunt. This one's not really that great. Um, This one's a little better, added a little bit of three dimension to it. And he's actually saying something too. He's saying, ha ha, whoa, which is something that people who smoke weed say. This one I think is the better one. It's kind of got a whole, it's got everything, man. It's got three dimensions going on, and SpongeBob looking a little feminine, but I think it's because he's got googly eyes for this weed leaf that he sees suspended in the air. Who knows if it's actually suspended there or if he's just imagining it as a result of the weed that he's smoking. I guess that's something that you can interpret on your own. This one's a meme. No, Patrick, seaweed is not something fish smoke. I mean, it's kind of funny on its own, but I think a better caption probably would have been is weed an instrument? Kind of giving a play on what Patrick actually asks in the episode. Because it would be funny if he thought that weed was an instrument. Kind of like how he thought that mayonnaise was an instrument. This one's also of This one's also of Patrick. Let me zoom in here. Some of these are kind of small, but luckily you can zoom in. Patrick, in this one, he's got a little speech bubble. He says, "I'm freaking out," and he's got, a weed blunt, and he's got 420. So he's kind of high. Maybe because he can see his name above him, which normally doesn't happen. This one's a little confusing to me, actually. SpongeBob has a scumbag Steve hat on, and he's saying, "I'll have you know, I smoke weed every day," which I don't think. I mean, in the culture that these are bred in, I don't think that that's a scumbag move. I think that actually it's kind of probably pretty well respected among weed smokers to smoke weed every day. So I don't really know why he has a scumbag Steve hat on in this picture. Maybe people look down on people who brag about smoking weed every day. I don't know. This this one makes me laugh. He's making a pretty funny face, but he's saying seaweed brownies, and he's doing a little dance of some sort. And this one's a comic. Don't really see a whole lot of these, but in the first panel, they're selling chocolate bars to this person, and he says, "We put weed in these chocolates. Interested?" And he says, "Weed?" And they say, "Yeah, weed." And then he screams, "I'm already high." He would be upset, I think, that he already got high, but he could have bought these chocolate with weed in them. So that's why he's upset in this comic, and that's the joke. Moving on to this next one. This is a sketch. A sketched image of SpongeBob smoking weed from a bong, I believe. It's kind of hard to make out, but I do believe that's a bong because he's got a lighter here, and he's kind of... Yeah, I do kind of see it. It's kind of hard to make out, but he's really going at it, and you can see the puffs of smoke are actually coming out of his sponge holes, which I think is something that we haven't seen so far. This is a big image. I don't know why all the other ones are pretty small, but this one's a sketch image of SpongeBob smoking weed as well. A little bit more of a rough sketch. Kind of, I think it's based off of the image where he's asking Squidward if he has had a Krabby Patty. I remember that image quite well. Here's a kind of a abstract picture of SpongeBob, but it looks like they added I don't even know. I think they it looks like somebody found some PNGs of some bloodshot eyes and kind of photoshopped them over SpongeBob's already pretty clearly blue eyes here. So not a really good Photoshop job, but hey, what can you do? These people who are making these are probably smoking a lot of weed. This one, I kind of wish that they would have spaced these words out a little bit. They have a lot of empty space up here and down here that they could have used so you could actually see SpongeBob's face. But it does say, I just want to smoke weed and watch SpongeBob. Why would anyone why would anyone be against that? Probably from a site called Whisper. Never heard of it. But apparently they specialize in memes about SpongeBob smoking weed, so I guess I would love to check that out. Here's the classic imagination photo, but instead down at the bottom it says smoke weed every day, which is a common kind of mantra that people who smoke weed have. Here's a picture of SpongeBob and Patrick, and they're running really fast in this first panel because it's 4:19 and it's got a red background. Urgency is the theme here. And then finally when it gets to 4:20 down here in the bottom panel, it's a green panel, which is a symbol for weed. Green is the universal color of weed. And as you can see, they're a lot happier in this one. They're a little bit more relaxed, and they're pointing to 4:20 like, look what time it is. And if you guys don't know, 4:20 is the time that everyone in the world smokes weed all at once. In this image, it looks like SpongeBob and Patrick are both smoking weed, but they're both having very different experiences. As you can tell, SpongeBob seems to be enjoying himself. He's a little cross-eyed, smiling, looking up into the air. But Patrick, I don't know, he seems to be having a bad kind of trip here. He looks a little scared. But, you know, it'll all be worth it in the end. You'll have a great story. This one is a meme where I think in the original photo they're holding a baby clam, but it looks like somebody photoshopped a picture of Purple Kush, or at least I think that's Purple Kush, just based on the caption down here, which says, "It's Purple Kush, Patrick." And they're looking at it kind of with excitement in their eyes, so they're excited to smoke this weed. Here's another, I guess you could say it might be an MS Paint photo or an image of SpongeBob and Patrick. Not really sure. It's kind of hard to tell, but it is a very rough drawing of SpongeBob and Patrick with blunts in their hand. It's not very anatomically correct over here with Patrick, but maybe that's just a result of them being high from the weed. It's an illusion. In this one, it's a bit of a... this one's actually a pretty nice drawing. The artist actually spent a lot of time on this one, you can tell. It says, "Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?" Yeah, you know, go check out that artist if you can read the signature, but it's pretty nice. A bit of a play on the episode where SpongeBob and Patrick keep saying, "Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?" But in this one, the thing that they're feeling apparently is the weed. I like this one because they're in class. Well, SpongeBob and Flats are in class, and SpongeBob asks him, "Hey, bro, where the weed at?" Which I think is pretty funny, because in the original he's being friendly to Flats, but Flats doesn't want to have anything to do with him. So maybe in this version, Flats doesn't want to tell him where the weed at, because then SpongeBob would smoke all the weed and Flats wouldn't get as much. This one is that classic picture of SpongeBob, and he's looking at Squidward like, you've I think that you've had a Krabby Patty, Squidward, but instead this one he says, "Where the weed at, my nigga?" which is something that people who smoke weed probably commonly say to each other when they're trying to inquire where the weed is at. So it's a relatable meme in that way. This was made by memegenerator.net, which kind of adds a little bit more credibility to this one. This one is, well, it kind of looks like part of it was the original SpongeBob artist, but somebody seems to have drawn his eyelids over his eyes and his corneas, as well as kind of added a blush, but he's blushing while smoking a blunt here, which I think is interesting. He might have been giggling in the original photo, but in this one, he's actually smoking a blunt, which is why he looks high. This one's a little bit relatable. When you come home high AF trying to sneak into your room, SpongeBob's got some wild glasses on, probably from a party or like a kickback where he put on these really funny glasses and he kind of kept them on to try to hide the bloodshot eyes from whoever he's trying to hide his highness from. This one is of SpongeBob. He's got some red eyes, but he's very clearly smoking a blunt at work. I don't know if this is approved by Mr. Krabs, but I don't know. Maybe it's different down underneath the ocean, but smoking at work typically frowned upon. Maybe Mr. Krabs has a different policy. This one's funny because it's a meme, but it's also a pun. The classic saying, "I didn't choose the thug life chose me," but this one says, "I didn't choose the nug life." Nug is slang for a bit of weed, I guess. And this one's kind of got a little bit of distortion, a little bit of filter through Photoshop on it as well. So it looks a little bit kind of messed up, you know. Well, they're getting smaller and smaller, but luckily we can zoom in here. This one, it gets a little cut off, but "You enjoy cannabis? You need to read this." Well, I'm assuming this is "if you enjoy cannabis, you need to read this." I'm pretty sure that's probably what the full thing is. Unfortunately, it was cut off, but this is a SpongeBob plush that is in a, basically it looks like a batch of weed. So it's kind of somebody who set it up. Kind of interesting. Something we haven't seen so far. Here's an original picture of SpongeBob, very excited to be holding what appears to be a very small blunt. Although, I don't know, this one could be him holding a golf tee, like the thing that you put golf balls on. But I'm assuming since he's so excited, it's very likely a blunt. I don't really know why he would be excited about holding a golf tee, but there you have it. This one is a meme. The police say, "Is there anything in the car that I should know about?" And then they say, "Is there anything in the car that I should know?" I'm assuming that the random capitalization is implying that they're asking again, but more forceful this time, and he's not answering. You know, you don't want to talk to the popo. That's rule number 1, especially when he's obviously high. Look at his eyes. Look at his face. Look, he's even hallucinating. He's got a third eye looking at him. So, I think it's gonna be hard to prove this in a court of law. You're gonna have to ask him to speak to your lawyer. In this one, SpongeBob became so high that he seems to have become weed. He's become green. SpongeBob, who's normally yellow, has turned a kind of weedish, pale, sickly green. And he's obviously enjoying himself, but hopefully that wears off once the weed wears off, because that doesn't look like a healthy color. Oh, and these are also apparently some brownies here. And beers, probably. It looks like he's having a good time. This one... this one says, "Spark it up, bro." Wait, what does it say? "Spark it up, Bob." I'm kind of disappointed it doesn't say "Spark it up, bro." But what are you going to do? And this one, kind of a gangsta-looking SpongeBob smoking a blunt in an armchair. He's got a weed medallion, and he's smoking a 40 with a backwards baseball cap on. So he's living his life the way he wants to, which is only respectable. You see, this one says, "You see, I want to give a fuck, but the way this weed got me set up, I can't." So SpongeBob just telling it like it is. He has his weed, he has his blunt, and he's just not giving a fuck. That's basically his mantra. So, you know, big ups to SpongeBob. This one this is kind of a repost if you really think about it. Just kind of a reformatted version of the meme that we saw earlier, so I'll just kind of pass over that one. In fact, I could probably get rid of that one. It's not really anything too different. This one is when SpongeBob got really dry from going into Sandy's house without a water bowl on his head, but instead of dry from water, in this one he is dry from the lack of weed that he's been able to smoke. So hopefully somebody will get him some weed soon. This one is a picture of a Gangsta SpongeBob with what looks like some bling on his fingers and in his grill. He's got a nice hat on, and he's got a lot of money. So I'm assuming, you know, the gangsta lifestyle usually comes with smoking some weed, so I'm assuming that a big portion of this money is going to be spent on cannabis. And this is kind of like the next slide, if you will. Like, this is the before, where he has a lot of money, and this is after, where he spent all of his money on some weed, and now he's smoking. This is actually a pretty nice drawing. He's smoking weed out of a pineapple bong, and he's got no pants on. His pants must have disappeared in the wildness that is his high, and puffs of smoke are not coming out of his nose or his mouth, but he's a sponge. He can kind of smoke out of all of his holes, which is something that, you know, we've seen already as artists have made renditions of SpongeBob high. Big common theme is that he has the ability to smoke out of his holes, which I think is cool. And he's got a little blowtorch here for smoking it. And his Krusty Krab hat, he's gotten rid of the Krusty Krab symbol and replaced it with a weed symbol. So, interesting. This is a picture of... I don't know what's going on. Maybe the picture's... Maybe my computer's been smoking a little bit. In this picture, SpongeBob is inquiring how much the particular set of weed that he needs to buy costs. He's got his wallet at the ready, so he's ready to pay for it. He's ready to get high. This one's pretty simple. Sometimes you gotta go back to the basics. This one's just a picture of SpongeBob, same classic face where he's asking Squidward if he's had a Krabby Patty before, or if he's caught him in the act, but he's saying, "Hey, let's go smoke some weed," which is just, you know, he just wants to go get that done. This one is a kind of a play on the classic meme, "I'll have you know," and then, you know, something that you brag about. But he says, "I'll have you know I smoke weed, but it's not real weed, it's seaweed." So it's to the format of the meme where it's like he's bragging about something that's not really that impressive. It's not really that impressive that you smoked seaweed. You said that you smoked weed, but then you kind of shanghaied us. You double crossed us. We thought you meant weed, but you actually meant seaweed. So sorry, man. Another another picture of this this face. This face gets me laughing. But you know, that's why it's so popular. It's a funny face. But he's saying he's kind of confiding in somebody that he's high. He's saying, "Psst, I'm high." Sometimes when you're high, I guess you gotta let someone in on it. This one's also pretty simple. Just SpongeBob smoking weed. I noticed that it's not. They're not taking advantage of the classic gap in SpongeBob's tooth like we did in that first picture. It's not really going through the gap, which I think it would honestly be better if it was going through the gap, but maybe that would make the blunt too long and too unrealistic. Here's one of SpongeBob. It's kind of like based on that classic like smug face SpongeBob. He's reversed, but in this one, and they've kind of recreated it basically in an artist form. But he's smoking a bright blue bong, and it looks like, and this isn't hair. I don't think this is SpongeBob's gray hair. This is not an elderly SpongeBob. These are little tufts of weed smoke coming out of the top of his head, because he's got holes everywhere, including the very top of his head. Here's a picture, a non kind of compressed picture of that other one that we saw earlier. This is kind of the original of bloodshot eyes, and he's got a bong in his hands, so that's interesting. Back up here. Here's an artist's rendition of what it would look like if SpongeBob was laying on a rock with a weed symbol on it, smoking out of a clear bong. Kind of, and this one is interesting because whenever, apparently according to this artist's rendition, whenever he smokes weed, he kind of gets this fluorescent glow within him that irradiates weed in a way, which I think is kind of cool. This one's kind of small, so you can't really tell what's going on. Actually, it's kind of hard to tell even if it wasn't small. He seems to be really high, smoking some weed. It looks like they kind of lifted the other picture that we saw earlier, but they put him on a background under the water, and he's thinking about, well, he's thinking about multiple things. He's thinking about he's thinking about himself, but emo, and that SpongeBob is kind of an Inception thing. It's a think about a think. The emo SpongeBob in his thinking bubble is thinking about Patrick. Maybe he's missing him. Maybe he's missing his friend. But it seems that he's multitasking. He's thinking about multiple things here. And this one, SpongeBob is running around. I don't know. Is he holding more weed? Is he just kind of dreaming about having more weed? I don't really know. And this one, it seems to be kind of almost a nightmare. This is kind of the nightmare. This is the bad trip part of his thoughts, where he's imagining himself naked and he's covering himself up. Kind of those classic bad dreams where you're in school and you find out you have no clothes on. Kind of one of those embarrassing kind of situations. And then that SpongeBob is thinking to himself, I know now. Very cryptic. I don't really know what I don't really know what this picture is supposed to be implying, but I guess it's up to the viewer to interpret what it means. This is a picture of SpongeBob at his grandma's house. Of course, you can see that he's got his fancy hat and he has his sideburns on, implying that he's a big grown-up boy. But his grandma says, hey, if you're a big grown-up boy, I guess you won't be wanting any of this weed. And he really wants it, you can tell, but it's an internal conflict. He doesn't know if he should continue the charade of trying to grow up and be a man, or if he should indulge in grandma's weed. This is a meme as well. This is kind of relatable. It says, when you open a fresh bag of Kush, and there's an image of SpongeBob looking into a bag of Kush, and it's so powerful, maybe the stench or the potency of the weed, it's literally blowing his face back. So this is a fresh bag of Kush, as you can tell, and Patrick's just happy to be here. Here's the image that we saw earlier on the merchandise, the T-shirt with the Gangster SpongeBob. You can get a better look at what this character is. He has no weed in the picture. He's mostly just stacked with a bunch of bling and money. But like I said before, he's very green. I think he's a big fan of green. He's got a lot of money, and like I said, in the gangster lifestyle, you usually will spend a lot of your income on buying marijuana. So that's probably what he's going to do. These are my favorite kind of images, to be honest. I really like these. It brings me back to the MySpace age. I don't know if anybody watching this is old enough to remember when MySpace was a big thing, but people used to put these kind of like really almost tacky looking GIFs on their pages, and this seems to be made for that era, and it really does remind me of that. Oh, whoops. I was trying to zoom in here. Oh, I guess you can't zoom into the GIF, but yeah, it says like it has a bunch of like moving parts to it, kind of catches your eye, gets people to friend you on MySpace. So if I saw this on somebody's page, then I would friend them right away, because it has words that really stick out to me, like gangsta, thug. I don't really know what the rest of this is. Is this supposed to say thuggy? I don't know. Thuggy sounds a little too cute. I think it's cut off. But it says bling bling down here. A bunch of other stuff, kind of obscured by the Gangsta SpongeBob. But it says in big letters right here, got weeds. So he's asking if people have got weeds. Or weed. The S is falling down. This is actually a screenshot from the real show. This is not edited at all. Maybe a little too small. I had to zoom in really far. But this says 50% C, 50% weed. And SpongeBob, he's had enough of C. He sees C all the time. This is the part he wants. He wants the weed. He wants the 50% weed. Make it 100% if you can. This is a full image of the classic scene in which SpongeBob and Squidward kind of are confronted here. SpongeBob is I guess in this edited scene is really high, and he's like, Squidward, I know you're hiding something, and Squidward doesn't want SpongeBob to know that he likes weed, but because he just kind of wants to stick it to him. But you know how it all works out in the end. I guess in this version, he would lock himself in there and smoke all the weed all at once, and then SpongeBob would be like, "No, you can't smoke all that weed at once." Well, yeah, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna explode? No, it'll go straight to your brain, and then it'll have a really crazy trip. This is a meme as well. This bitch just dropped the weed. Shit just got real. Yeah, see, they're very angry because somebody dropped their weed. So, if you're ever smoking with SpongeBob and Patrick, make sure you hold on to the weed before it actually gets into the bong, or else they'll be very upset. I like this one too. This is like a chalk drawing, which I think is kind of cool. Once again, showing off that SpongeBob is a sponge and he can smoke out of all the holes in his body, which is clever, I think. This bong is well, it's kind of a high bong, but it is unlike the other ones I've seen. This one's clear and it's very small, but maybe it's been curated for SpongeBob's small hands. But he looks like he's having a grand old time. This one just says, "Weed, it's amazing." Has really nothing to do with the original. Usually whenever you make a meme, I think that you should base it off the original picture, but I think they just, they needed a cool picture to get the point across that weed is amazing. And SpongeBob, I mean, look at his face. His eyes are dilated. Something's going on. This one's pretty relatable as well. From High Life is the one who made this one, apparently. But it says at the top, "When the weed man says he's dry." And SpongeBob is very upset. I'm assuming this is the weed man who's also very upset. He doesn't want to be dry. He wants to make his customers happy, so he's also very upset. But as you can see, SpongeBob is not handling the situation very well. And also, I find it interesting that people would call their weed dealers or their marijuana supplier the weed man. One word. Kind of sounds like a last name. Like, "Hi, I'm Jonathan Weedman." Oh, well, I guess that's the end of that. Those are all the pictures I have. If you guys have any more pictures of SpongeBob smoking weed or any other kind of drawings of SpongeBob smoking weed, please let me know. I've been collecting them. And thanks so much for watching. Bye.